Lisa, who is so talented at this, maybe you didn't pick up on this. She just gently reminded us we have 5 minutes, so I'm going to get going. She's a real pro. So I'm going to talk to you about the wetland and the shorelines and shallow text. Here you can see what the revised objectives for the wetlands, which include both coastal and freshwater wetland systems. And while we have the gross targets, the 1,000 acres by 2020, the 5,000 by 2050, this tech also recognizes that we're not working with a static system, that we are experiencing losses by doing nothing. And so we do also want to be able to measure our performance against that as well. So we've done 220 plus acres of restored wetlands since 2009, which, if you do some of the math, shows we're close with what we want to do by way of gross achievements. And with respect, we need to do more analysis on the gain-loss question, but that too, I think, is probably pretty close. So there's a lot of success in that particular text so far. I'm just going to look at a couple of projects by way of example, and these are some of the larger scale projects. And the important thing here is that you have to realize none of these projects gets done without an incredible amount of partnership and leveraging of funds. They're just too large a scale for any one entity to take on. So starting up in the top left, New Jersey DEP partnered with NOAA, working in cooperation with the Port Authority and Hudson County, using NRD funds in order to pull this project off, which is a nice mosaic of habitat types. In the lower right, Elders West was building off of our success of the first Jamaica Bay Marsh Island at Elders East and the partnership of the Army Corps and New York City DEP and DEC providing funding with an assist, technical assist from the National Park Service and administrative assist from the Port Authority. We got the additional 40 acres there. We had so much fun with that, we followed it up 2 years later with Yellow Bar Hassock for another 47 acres, that same partnership. And then right on the heels of that, jumped on an opportunity to leverage the Army Corps' Harbor Deepening Project to build the footprint of Blackwall and Ruler's Bar. And then we brought on another partner, and a critical partner here, where through the Jamaica Bay Eco Watches, the American Littoral Society, leading it, we brought the community into the project. And they mobilized the community. We had a community, did all the planting that was conducted on those islands, which was a tremendous cost savings to the project, and just a great social development project, we think, as well. So a really important component. And in the two lower left slides, New York City Parks projects that were, again, leveraged New York State Bond Act funds with city funds, coordinated with the Army Corps for CAP monies and other funding to get these projects done as well. All took years and lots of dollars and lots of partnership, but very successful. I don't have a lot of time to run through a list of other projects that we've completed since 2009. Here's just a smattering of them. And John reminded me the Paradigm Wetlands project at 38 acres is the total, including some upland habitat. It's about 14 acres of wetlands there, which is still a nice sizable project. And the list is actually quite a bit longer than that. But I'm going to move on because there are other projects that are still in the queue that are coming online, which are where a lot of people in this room are excited about. We've got the running through projects up in the Bronx, as well as more in Jamaica Bay and out on Staten Island and Monmouth and Union in New Jersey. Again, large-scale projects, large partnerships, so there's a lot of good things that are in the pipeline and that are coming on. I'm going to use Spring Creek South as a transitional slide for me in a way because it ties together a lot of the themes from several of the texts and the resiliency perspective that you've heard a couple of times already today. That's a project that DEC applied to FEMA for a hazard mitigation grant. We were approved for that. So we're working with the Army Corps now and the National Park Service with help from lots of other folks to try and make that project work. But the key here is that, as you've heard, we've had to reframe the way we've looked at these restoration projects. We've had to add that resiliency lens to them in order to make them more fully address what the needs of the region are. Because in retrospect, all these marsh islands that we restored, which were developed for an ecological purpose almost exclusively, they had also an added benefit to the public by protecting them under storm conditions. But for Spring Creek, which is this project here surrounding the Howard Beach community, working in that resiliency or that storm protection component was paramount to it. It's first and foremost in our development. But we're going to do it in a green way that also has those incredible habitat restoration benefits, which includes, and here's the transition, wetlands and also some innovative shorelines and shallows work. So shorelines and shallows, just as a quick reminder, this one came about because over the centuries of development here, what we've done is we've pushed the shoreline out. So we've eliminated the shallow water habitat near shore. And then we hardened the edge, so we eliminated the habitat complexity and diversity, harming the environment. So the goals of this tech are really tied to restoring and improving those attributes back in the landscape. And since 2009, that's been done in a relatively small scale, but for those of us who have been involved with it, it's building momentum. Just a couple of examples of projects. In the upper left, in Brooklyn, the Parks Department stabilized the degraded shoreline and brought sand back in to enhance horseshoe crab spawn. Good project. Up in the South Bronx, the industrial edge of it was pulled back. Wetland was created in front, and then a freshwater system set behind it to aid the stormwater management. Likewise, at Brooklyn Bridge Park, there's freshwater wetlands built into the system to manage stormwater, and then there's this terrific perched intertidal salt marsh on Pier 1, which is working super well. This, while outside the harbor region, in the Delaware Estuary, their Living Shoreline Initiative has got a tremendous amount of energy behind it, a lot of work going on, a lot of lessons being learned, and things that are being brought into our region. And the momentum is also being supported in a number of key ways that aren't just project implementation. For instance, New Jersey passed a law. You've got a general permit in place now for living shoreline construction, which really aids in the processing of those projects. Rebuild by Design, you've heard a little bit about already, and you'll hear more about that, how it's trying to incorporate living shorelines in a resiliency component. Our colleagues upriver, through their Sustainable Shorelines program, have identified best management practices that can really guide folks who are trying to do this kind of work. Locally, the Metropolitan Waterfront Alliance, the work that they're doing in incentivizing waterfront developers to look at their shoreline and try to make something more of it than just a hard edge through the WEDGE program. That's quite exciting locally. And then the Restoration Work Group, we recently released a grant to develop an assessment protocol, because we got all this work going on. In order to evaluate it, we want to have a mechanism in which to do that fairly and consistently across the board. Bless you. And a couple of other things, but again, in order to keep this moving so that we get to your questions, I'm going to move on, but just say that I got to deal with two techs in which there's been a lot of progress and a lot of momentum being built, so I'm happy to have had the opportunity to talk